On the afternoon of September 21st, 1982, 30-year-old Lee Marie DePalma, wife, mother, and nurse, vanished in broad daylight. As of now, she's still missing. This is Lee DePalma's home, where she lived with her husband Joe and their 3-year-old son Anthony. Tuesday, September 21st, 1982, started as a normal day. Joe DePalma left for work at about 7 o'clock that morning. He worked for Rothman's of Pall Mall in Downsview. Inside the house, Mrs. DePalma's parents, Audrey and Kevin Conway, were visiting. At about 9:30, Mrs. Conway awakened Lee and told her that she and her husband would soon be leaving.
Lee. Come on, honey, time to wake up. Come on, Lazy. Time to get up, sweetheart.
Mommy, I am so tired. I think I could sleep all day.
How can you be tired when you slept all night and had such a good night's sleep?
I don't know.
Oh, come on. So we fed Anthony. He's all fed and he's all ready.
Okay.
I'll go down and put your kettle on. You can have a cup of tea, eh? And then we'll have to get going.
Okay.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay, hurry up now.
Hi, Anthony. Hi. Kiss?
Here's your tea, dear. Dad and I are going to go and load the car now.
Okay, thanks, Mom. Did you finish all your juice?
That's a good boy.
Did you have some toast? No?
Yeah.
Want some of mine?
Good boy.
Tell me about the story. You reading Bambi?
Yes.
Who's this?
What?
What's the frog say?
Ribbit.
Oh, that's a good boy.
The Conways left the DePalma house about 10:30. They'd arrived the day before and were now on their way to visit Lee's brother Paul in Levac, Ontario. They invited Lee to join them, but she declined, stating that Anthony had to be at nursery school and that she had a hair appointment. A short time later, we assume that Lee herself left the house with Anthony. Lee's family thinks she meant to come back that afternoon because she'd prepared the evening meal and left it in the oven. She was seen in her car with Anthony, parked on the north side of Highway 90, a short distance from her home.
That morning when I was traveling down Highway 90, I seen a DePalma car at the stop sign of the road she was of her home. And as I traveled past it, coming back up the highway, the car was still parked there. And moments later, the car was back here at the garage.
She was served by Richard Pridham.
Well, she come in as normals. She comes in 4 or 5 times a week. And I walked out, and she usually gets her oil checked. It's an older car, and she usually gets $5 to $10 worth of gas at a time. And I just pumped her gas, and she's really polite. She gave me the money, and that's all about.
Where was she headed when she left the station?
She headed out Highway 90, right straight out towards Barrie here. And I seen her leaving. That's about all, really. Just regular day, her coming in to get gas.
At about 1:15 p.m., Lee DePalma arrived at the Barrie YMCA with Anthony. She brought Anthony into the stay-and-play classroom and left him in the care of Heather Fraser, the instructor. After leaving Anthony in class, Lee was seen in a corridor by Cheryl Anderson, who had also brought her child to class. Mrs. Anderson saw Lee enter the ladies' washroom. Mrs. Eisnor is the last person to have definitely seen Lee Marie DePalma prior to her disappearance.
My son was crying, so she looked over towards me, kind of commiserating with me, and smiled. Then she took a quick peek into the classroom to ensure her son was okay, I suppose, and I saw her walking down the hall and towards the back door.
From the moment Lee Marie DePalma stepped through this door at the Barrie YMCA on Tuesday afternoon, September 21st, 1982, she became a missing person, officially. Now, we'll be back with the mysterious disappearance of Lee DePalma right after these messages. According to later information, Lee DePalma's next stop should have been Bellini's Unisex Hairstylists in the Bayfield Mall. Lee had a 1:30 appointment that afternoon, but the appointment was never kept. Not far from the Bayfield Mall is Sunnydale Park. Witnesses claim they observed 2 cars in the parking lot sometime between 2 and 3 p.m. They identified one of the cars as being similar to Lee DePalma's Buick, and they observed a man and a woman in conversation. At 4:34 p.m., Dave Garner of the YMCA telephoned the Barrie Police Department to inquire if a Mrs. DePalma might have been involved in a car accident.
Yes, it's Dave Garner calling from the Barrie YMCA. We have a young boy here, about 3 years of age. His name's Anthony DePalma. His mother was to pick him up at 3:15. It's now 3:45, and she's not shown up, and we were wondering if there's any accidents that she may be involved with.
Later, Anthony DePalma was taken to the Barrie OPP department.
Come on, Anthony, come on, put your coat on. That's a boy. That's a boy. We'll find Mom. We'll find her. She isn't very far away. No, okay?
We'll see you Thursday, Anthony.
See you Thursday, okay. Say goodbye, Dave.
This is the intersection of Sophia and Bayfield Streets. Early that evening, a car identified by a Mr. William Allen McPherson as being similar to Lee DePalma's car allegedly almost collided with his own as both vehicles turned onto Bayfield. They both continued north on Bayfield Street, traveling side by side. Mr. McPherson stated that there was a male passenger, but he had little information as to the driver. Shortly afterwards, the car in question turned into the Bayfield Mall. Sometime between 5 and 6 p.m., Denise Sullivan, an employee, glanced over toward the parking lot nearby and noticed the DePalma vehicle parked there.
Well, I got home at 6:30 on September the 21st, and the phone rang, and it was the OPP in Barrie. They informed me that Lee had not picked up the baby at the Y, and she was supposed to pick the baby up around 3 o'clock.
What did you do then?
Well, I went into Barrie, and the people at the Y were holding Anthony for me, and I picked up Anthony, and we both drove over to the OPP detachment, and a description of the car was given to the police, and then Lee became a missing person when they started to search for her car.
At 7:50 p.m., Constable Mealing of the Barrie Police Force arrived at the Ontario Provincial Police Detachment to question Joe DePalma. After taking the information from Joe DePalma, Constable Mealing began a methodical search of the Bayfield Mall. At 8:44 p.m., he located Lee DePalma's Buick, parked in the laneway leading to the Canadian Tire gas bar. The driver's side door was unlocked and the power window was down. Constable Mealing inspected the car and found various items on the front and back seats, but everything appeared to be normal. Lee DePalma's car was taken to the Barrie Police Force garage, where it was later photographed and examined for fingerprints. A special fuming technique for detecting latent fingerprints was activated by the officer who had developed it, Constable Burden of the North Bay City Police Force. He'd been called in to assist Constable McKay of the Barrie Police Force in the examination of the DePalma vehicle for fingerprints.
It's basically a fuming process whereby the item to be fingerprinted is placed into a chamber. The chamber is then filled with the fumes from the chemical that's in the machine. The fumes react on the deposits left on the item by the skin. When the fumes react with the deposits from the skin, the deposits turn a whitish color and actually become plasticized, making them almost indestructible. You can actually rub the prints afterwards and the prints won't wipe away.
In this case, of course, the item we're dealing with is a car. How did you contain it?
Well, in this particular case, the chamber was the car itself. The item, of course, is too big to place into a chamber. So what we do is place tubes from the machine into the car through cracks in the doors, around the windows, and seal the car off completely, and then pump the fumes into the entire cavity of the car.
How long does the whole process take?
An hour to 2 hours. It just depends on how well the prints have been left there in the first place, whether there's been a good deposit of perspiration or whatever from the skin.
How do you, as an experienced police officer, feel about the technique?
I think it's excellent. I think it's something that we've been waiting for a long time.
Oscar Lima Hotel 5.
An extensive search was conducted over the next few days, and Lee DePalma's description was made available to every police force in the country. In addition, a zone alert was issued to all police forces within 200 kilometers of Barrie. Finally, the OPP Criminal Investigation Branch assigned Detective Inspectors Reines and Gibson to the case in order to help broaden the scope of the investigation. In a moment, we'll continue with the unsolved disappearance of Lee Marie DePalma. October 19th, the Criminal Investigations Branch of the OPP were called in on the case. That afternoon, Inspector Picard reviewed the details of the case for Inspectors Reines and Gibson. They needed to familiarize themselves with the disappearance. Now, there was a lot of information to cope with, some of it from people close to Mrs. DePalma, and some from people who say they saw her on the day she vanished.
Well, I remember very clearly on the way into Barrie when I was supposed to be picking up Anthony, I had an awful feeling that there was something really, really wrong, because it wasn't likely to be late, let alone 3 or 4 hours late.
How was Anthony at this point?
Anthony actually was in a very good mood. The gentleman at the Y had taken him home, and he'd had supper with the family. So he really wasn't aware of anything at this point.
Was Lee a reckless person, or was she very careful?
No, she was very, very careful. She actually was very concerned about this sort of thing happening.
Be more specific. What sort of thing?
She was very concerned about being assaulted by a man. In fact, she wouldn't even have a sharp knife in the house because she was more or less paranoid about being assaulted, kidnapped, whatever. She couldn't even watch that type of movie on TV. It would bother her.
Were you two in touch by phone during the day at all, or routinely?
Not on a regular basis. No, now and then I would phone from work, but not on a regular basis. She was very careful when she worked at nights in the hospital. I would get a call at home before she left, and if she was not here in half an hour, then that was my cue to go and find her.
What about driving her car when she was on her own?
Driving her car on her own, she was very, very careful. The doors were always locked. Even for running into the store for 30 seconds, the doors were locked, always.
Well, on the 21st, we had organized a search of the immediate area around the Bayfield Mall. We were, what police personnel we could gather up, plus 140 students from the law and security course at Georgian College. And we've done a shoulder-to-shoulder search of that bush area immediately behind the mall, right through to Sunnydale Road. We started there because that's where the vehicle was found abandoned. For the next move, we extended our search in that area north, east, and a little west of the plaza, because it then goes into rural area. We checked all the side roads there, and subsequently we had the Ontario Provincial Police helicopter come in, and we did 3 days of air search in the same general area. And then we reassessed it at a later date and thought we should go to a geographical area down to the south of the city. Why we concentrated here, we thought if she'd been abducted, it was unlikely that someone would bring her through the residential or the business area, and it was more likely to go this way. But we did extend our search this way, and we done approximately, in all, about 140 square kilometers of search. Plus, we spun off into Angus with a helicopter here, and we done the gravel pits in this area. And these isolated spots were from information we received about some suspicious happening, so they were all searched, and that's where we are today. We got a four-wheel drive vehicle from the Ministry of Natural Resources, and so we've been everywhere a car could go.
The ground searches were very extensive. They even searched behind our house here.
Did you conduct any searches yourself?
Yes, numerous searches. Actually, every day for about, almost a month. Myself and many friends.
Did you learn anything?
Yes. It's be very difficult to find someone in the area around here. It's very dense bush.
Mrs. Conway, tell me about Lee. What kind of person is she?
Oh, she's very sweet, loving, kind girl. And very devoted to Joe and Anthony, always, I think. And always was a homebody, you know, never seemed to want to wander around or go anywhere. She was quite happy to stay put.
Is your daughter the kind of person who may have run away?
Not in the least. Not in the least. I wouldn't believe that if somebody told me they had a Bible sworn statement on it. I would not believe it unless Lee looked me in the face and told me, and it just couldn't be.
There's no way she would go and leave the baby.
Why are you so certain of that, if I may ask?
I guess just knowing her. She's just not the type of person that would do a thing like that. She just couldn't. She wouldn't hurt us like that. I mean, she would have gone to Nancy, or she would have come to us and told us if she was having problems.
Mr. Conway, take us back a bit. Now, you were staying in the house at the time. What did you and Lee and Joe talk about?
Our talk was about the coming birthday of Nancy, her sister, who was very close to her, and Christmas, which Lee would like to have come home this year for Christmas, because we felt it might be our last one in Montreal, which she still called it home, although she was born in Toronto.
Where do you think she is?
I don't know. I don't know.
Any guesses at all?
No, not really.
Well, I think there's a little more than that to it. The reason we're making our move to Toronto is to be in the area, because in discussing it privately ourselves, we feel somewhere in the southern area of Ontario, we'll find her. And I think we have to look for her, because I don't think she knows who she is or where she belongs.
And so the investigation began. There was a great deal of media coverage of the disappearance, and with it, there came the usual number of mistaken or crank calls reporting sightings of Mrs. DePalma. But one report seemed to have some real credibility. A waitress who was working at Bob Beau's restaurant in Lakefield on the night of September 28, 1982. At about 7:30, a man and a woman entered the restaurant. The waitress approached them. She noticed that the woman seemed very depressed and that her eyes were red, as if she'd been crying.
You people ready to order now?
Yes, we are. What's the soup of the day?
French onion soup today.
Okay, we'll have 2 French onion soups, cabbage rolls and coffee for her, and I'll have the hot beef and tea for myself, please.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
While I brought their soup to the table, they were both in the washrooms. And then he waited for her by the washroom door, and then they came back and sat down. And I took the soup away and brought their dinners.
Did they both finish their dinners?
He did, but she didn't.
There you go.
Thank you. Was there anything wrong?
No, it's fine. We should like to wrap the cabbage roll. It should be good. We'll not take it out.
Okay, thank you. I'll be right back.
Okay.
What kind of man did he appear to be to you?
Just an ordinary guy.
Was he friendly?
In a way, yes, it was.
Thank you.
Is she not feeling well tonight?
No, she's sick. She's got hay fever and amnesia.
I went home and I watched the news later. And I saw her picture on TV again, and I knew for sure it was her.
Thank you.
In other words, that night, earlier that evening, you had served Lee DePalma.
Yes, that's right.
You're absolutely positive about
There's no doubt in my mind.
I definitely believe her. She's an incredible lady. Her powers of recall are absolutely fantastic. The things she remembered, she told the police things that only I could have told the police. She has incredible memory.
Lee Marie DePalma is still missing. Now, if you have any information at all related to her disappearance, contact the Barrie Police at area code 705-728-5588. Your calls will be held in strict confidence. In a moment, we'll return with a tip on how to prevent a crime before it happens.
This is Dennis Melvin Howe, a suspect in the homicide of Sharon Morningstar Keenan. Howe is described as white, 5'9", 165 pounds. He has a dark complexion, dark brown hair, and brown eyes. He may be wearing a mustache now and is presumed to be 30 pounds lighter in weight compared to this photo. If you've seen this man, contact your local police or the Metro Toronto Police Homicide Squad at 967-2375.
A crime prevention tip from the Barrie Police Department. One of the most common crimes today is shoplifting. Shoplifting so common, in fact, that it's having a direct impact on the economy and therefore on all of us. The theft of a $2 can opener from a store operating on a 10% profit margin requires the sale of $20 in merchandise to make up for the loss. Who are the shoplifters? Some are skilled professional thieves with specialized techniques. They usually go for the expensive items that can be sold. Sometimes, however, they're members of the general public, solid citizens who are bored or need to stretch their budgets. You have to be sharp, because shoplifters often work in pairs. One distracts the clerk while the other steals. Avoid putting more than one valuable item on the counter at a time when you're showing it to a customer. It's easier to keep track of one piece of jewelry than it is of half a dozen pieces. And never leave display cases unlocked. Juveniles make up nearly half of all shoplifters. Some do it for the fun of it, others because they're dared into it by their friends and they don't want to appear chicken. Narcotic and drug addicts shoplift to support an expensive habit. Sometimes they're desperate. Department stores seem to be the main target of kleptomaniacs. These are people who steal because of a psychological compulsion. They need help. A lot can be done to deter shoplifting, particularly with specific employee training. Customers should be greeted as they enter a store or a department. Courtesy and attention always deter the shoplifter. Watch out for the customer with nervous hands and darting eyes. Watch out for people just wandering around the store. Let people know that shoplifters will be prosecuted. Advertise against shoplifting by posting warning signs. Again, we can all do our part to help prevent shoplifting. For more information, contact your local police department. This has been Citizens Alert. Tonight's story was the mysterious disappearance of Lee Marie DePalma. If you have any information regarding this case, please come forward and contact the Barrie Police at area code 705-728-5588 or contact your local police department. I'm Patrick Conlon for Citizens Alert.
Transportation for the cast and crew of Citizens Alert provided by Thrifty Rent-A-Car. For reservations or information, look in your yellow pages for the location nearest you. While in Barrie, cast and crew of Citizens Alert stayed at the Brookdale Park Inn. Discover a world of difference at the Brookdale.
Next week, Citizens Alert examines the murder of Toronto cheerleader Jenny Isford. Stay tuned right now for The Tonight Show following Global News Update coming up next. Tomorrow, Joanna Pettit plots to avenge the Fantasy Island death of her husband by posting $1 million bounty on Rourke's head on Fantasy Island at 10. Sunday, car trouble strands Clark and Gloria in the boonies with a shortage of cash to boot. And wouldn't you just know the motel room they have to share is a honeymoon suite? Gloria, Global's got it, Sunday at 8:30.